Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, and you're on BackstageAxxess.com, where the real show begins. Yeah.
Gus Gressinger here with Backstage Access. We're here with a very special guest. Rob Halford is here, the legendary frontman of Judas Priest. How are you, Rob?
What's up, everybody? I'm good, Gus. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you again. It's been about 10 years since I think we've interviewed you. So.
Wow. Where did the time go? It's insane.
Yeah, it's been a while. So obviously we're here for Confess, which is a great autobiography. Just came out on Hatchet Books, I believe about a couple weeks ago, correct?
You got me. I think it was around September 29. Was it?
Okay.
September 29
Was it?
was the launch date. But again, wow, the world we're living in now, we can't make sense. What day is it? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's true.
But
It's
it's been good.
Day, every day.
Yeah, totally. Very Bill Murray. Yeah.
So I got to ask you, because I've had a long story career, obviously, and why now was the right time to do this book?
I think most people that put these types of memoirs together like to get some mileage in their life, and for me particularly, I was approached in my late 30s, early 40s about the opportunity, and I'm like, no, man, it's not. I've got more stuff to do. I've got more things to see, and in my work with Priest, and just everything as a person. Let me just wait. So I don't know what it was. The clock went off, the alarm went off when I spoke with the people from the book publishers in a hotel in New York, whenever that was. And I said, let's do it, let's do it. I also wanted to be comfortable with the publishers that I worked with, and Headline Hachette are just amazing people. So yeah, it feels like now is the time to do it. As I'm about to start my 70th trip around the sun, it makes even more sense because, I've had a beautiful, glorious, blessed life, and I want to wanted to get it all documented while I could still get those metal memories in shape.
How long did it take you to do the book? How long was the process?
I've been asked this question recently, and I think I'm going to have to reach out to Ian Gittins, who made the book happen. He says we talked for about 50 hours or so, 50 or 60 hours. We started last summer here in Phoenix, and then maybe for like 3 or 4 weeks of nonstop talking, 5 or 6 hours a day. We took a break, and then we had a couple of more sessions at the home country in the UK. And I know we must have finished before Christmas time or just after Christmas time this year. And then there was a quick turnaround because we had the transcripts coming back pretty much every other day. And then it was Ian's job to put it all together and present the manuscript to the publishers, and they go, "It's too long." What? It's too long? Yeah, it's too long. We've got to chop it down. Oh man, come on, It's like how many tracks does an album have? The given number has always been 10, and even Priest have gone into the 14 tracks and 16 tracks world. So, but then I started to understand the value of editing. It's like when you edit a song, every singer wants 48 verses, because it's me on the mic, but you only need four verses. So they taught me a really important lesson about you make a book is like you make a record, So whatever time that is, I'll have to nail this down with Ian. But he was so fluent; he knew exactly what he needed and what he wanted every day, and we kept the metal furnace roaring.
And what was surprising is a lot of people who actually do autobiographies, they get the book company hires a person to do the audio part, and you actually did the audio part of this book, which I found to be very. A friend of mine actually got it and enjoyed it very much. He wanted me to tell you that. And how long did that take you to do? On top of
a couple of weeks, weeks again, because it's different. It's a different thing to have a conversation like you and I are having.
Yeah, right.
And it's also a different experience because when we read a book, we don't speak it. We just sitting there reading it, and the head's going. You're hearing a voice, whatever. but when you actually talk it out, you have to talk it out like you and I are talking. You have to speak as though you're having a conversation. And at least the one kind of insight that I've had as a singer through all my years with Priest, 50 years of screaming my tits off, is that you really have to find a way of expressing yourself with your voice and making that honest connection. So when the publisher said, we're thinking about the audio, who do you want? My first thought was, I've really got to do it myself. I can't, as much as there are great people out there, great voice actors, the essence of honesty is all threaded all the way through this book. And to hand it over to somebody else, and no matter how great they are, we'd have kind of left something a little bit open. So found a studio here in Phoenix, Premiere Studios in Phoenix on Indian School. And I went in there Monday to Friday, 1 week, Monday to Friday, the next week, all PP'd up with my mask and gloves and sanitized. They did the guys there were beautiful. They kept me really safe. And again, depending on the texture of the book, 3 to 4 hours of talking per day, just to get it right. Because again, when I'm doing my takes, I do 5 or 6 chapters a day. I'd be reading a line, I go, I need to do that again. I also had a great publisher, producer who was in New Jersey, who was in on the read, Tom Mace, and he would say, could you just reread that sentence for me again and just put an emphasis on this part? I'm like, great. You need producers in everything when you're doing creative work of this nature, and music, of course. So a couple of weeks, probably. Yeah, a couple of weeks.
One of the stories that I found, there's a lot of great stories, and obviously I want everybody to go out and get the book. But one of the stories I want to touch upon is your meeting with Andy Warhol. And one of the questions I have to ask you, I know it was a very short, encounter with him, but was there ever a conversation with him wanting to do a pop art series with you?
That's a very cool question. Nothing came out of it. It's funny because if you do the Google, you'll see some people have actually taken the art, if you want to, I suppose it's art. Yes, it's art. Pictures that we took together, and took some pictures together.
Yes, I did.
They're amazing. Thank goodness we've got them, because that's the only proof that we were there together. Because it's such a wild story, the handcuffing and then going to Studio 54 together. But no, I don't think anything. I don't think anything ever came of it. Although he was obsessed with work, he was just fanatical. But he never stopped, And as I understand it, I'd love to go to this place in New York that has literally hundreds of thousands of pieces of work by Andy, and some of which are still being discovered now. So who knows? Who knows what he may have done that night when he got back from Studio 54? That'd be something, wouldn't it? That'd be crazy.
You've had some great musical experiences, obviously opening up for Led Zeppelin, playing the Garden for the first time, the US Festival back in '83, or the US Festival, if everybody wants to call it that. Out of all those and whatever else that you talked about in the book, I want you to focus in on maybe the highlight, or what you consider probably your highlight of your career.
Well, there's so many. It's difficult to pin down one. I think probably. Wow, I would still say that opportunity that Priest had to open up for Led Zeppelin on the Day of the Green, which is kind of bittersweet because I think it was the last show they ever did together. But that was important for lots of different reasons. It was important for us as a band to be able to work with these incredible musicians who just mean so much then and still do now. They were groundbreakers. The the fact that that show really opened up Priest on the West Coast of America, because people came in from all parts of California and elsewhere for those two shows. So I think that that's a pretty important moment. I'm sure when we finish Zooming, I'll go, oh God, why did I not remember this thing or that thing? You know, making your first album is still your first professional record at Island Studios, where we had to sleep in the van all day because we could only afford night rates. You know, all those stuff are important. But from the live aspect, the live performing aspect, that was one of the biggest shows we'd ever played in our lives as a band. And, you know, to be in front of so many people really makes you think about your abilities, you know, your credentials. You really have to kind of do that spinal tap and turn everything up to 11 to make sure it's working. And it did, because those two shows have become legendary.
All right. And one of the most important things in Confess in your autobiography is your sobriety. 34 years now that you've actually going to be, in a couple of months, going to be 35 years that you are celebrating sobriety. I want to say congratulations to you. And any words of encouragement to people out there? Obviously, there's going to be people that are going to be watching this that, you know, face daily battles with this, and any words of encouragement that you may have to them that could help them.
Well, yeah, thanks for those cool words, Gus. I mean, the support that you need every day through staying sober is important, and just those words that you said to me are important to me, because they have terrific value. It is one day at a time. Every time I see a commercial on television for a beer or a shot, I'm like, oh God, I would love a cold beer. But I know I can't, because I'd just be in a really sick place. I'd be in a healthy place again. So the tough part is living on a day-to-day schedule. It's even tougher when you're on the road and you're surrounded by guys that love a drink, and all my band loves a drink. And but I have all the tools in place to avoid that temptation, which is just very easy to give into on the spur of a moment, and then, you know, what you worked so hard for seems to have been lost. Having said that, yesterday is gone. It doesn't matter anymore. It's gone. It's all about living in the moment now, you know. For people that are struggling with it, understand that you're not alone, that there are literally millions, if not hundreds of millions of us. And that doesn't make it any easier, but I'd like people to think that, to understand that you are not alone, and there are incredible, much easier ways now of reaching out and finding help. You know, we've all got a cell phone, which the smartphone, which is the start of a recovery journey. There are places you can go pretty much everywhere on the planet to attend meetings and see people that are going through the same wonderful challenges and great opportunities as yourself. Just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because it's fear as well. You know, I started drinking and drugging to cover up a lot of my own pain. You know, and that's a very common denominator in people that have an addiction. It can be anything. An addiction can be anything, of course, but in this case, that was my crutch. You know, I was using it to kind of get lost in the difficulties that I was having, and thinking that by having a drink or a drug, things would be better, and they weren't. Now they were still the same. You know, you go to bed, collapse out on the bed at night, and then you'd wake up and you go, well, problem's still there, the issues are still there, you know. So please really think about the great things that you can do for yourself, because when you become clean and sober out of an addiction for drugs and alcohol, you become an incredibly strong, powerful, potent person. We've all got that in us. We just don't know how to get to it yet. But once you start to go into recovery, which starts one day at a time, you'll find the most incredible things start to happen to you, for you as a person. And then it spreads out to your family, to your friends, to your co-workers, to everything that you do in life. suddenly it's like being given a second chance, you know, and you relish in the opportunity of living in a clean and sober life. And so it's all that. That's all that is waiting for you when you make that first step.
Words of inspiration from the metal god. And before we let you go, because we're obviously coming up to our time, I have to ask you one question for the Priest fans out there, and they probably want to know when I Will Return and Run Around are actually going to be, you know, properly released. So I have to ask that question.
I've got those 3 songs on a cassette back at my
And You Are
homeland.
Everything as well too, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little tiny snippet of that floating around on YouTube. It's a great song. Another example that we've always said in Priest, a great song will take any kind of reinterpretation. But I Will Return and Run Around, they're cracking little rock songs, you know. They got some great grooves and riffs, and they sound really potent. I tell you what would be fun. This is just completely off the wall. Why don't Priest do those songs again now? You know, I wonder how that texture would be if we just did him in a slightly different way. That would be kind of cool to contemplate. But they're really cool songs. The direct answer to your question, Gus, I can't give you because they're locked away in Pete Waterman's safe. He's got the masters, and I know he would probably relish the opportunity to release them. I've got a sneaky feeling that someday they will be released to the world. You know, maybe we'll do, I don't know, maybe we'll do like a 6-track thing where it's like the Stock Aitken Waterman versions and the, you know, with all of their great ideas, and then have the 3 other versions of the more intense, heavier attitude. But who knows? The world's always changing.
We appreciate, Rob. I know you're very busy. Like you said, you got a lot of interviews to do today, and I'm sure there's probably more after me. And I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us at Backstage Access. Nothing but success with this. Again, go out and get Confess. I couldn't put it down. I'm sure you won't either. It's everybody out there. And again, Mr. Halford, the metal god, rock on. And thank you so much for talking to us today at Backstage Access.
Thanks, Gus. Horns up, buddy. Everybody stay safe and sound, and we'll see you in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you, buddy. Bye-bye.